The Fed has been trying hard to pretend that no problem with the economy and we are recovering very well. The Fed chairman said that inflation is transitory, but Peter Schiff says that we don't even know if he understands that that's the case. He probably thinks it's transitory. That statement will go down as a far big policy blunder than to contain. What's interesting about Ben Bernanke? Subprime is contained because there was an interview with Ben Bernanke. It was on Motley Fool Radio and they played clips of him saying that subprime is contained. Nothing to worry about, everything is great. So the host of the radio show asked Ben Bernanke, how does it make him feel listening to this when he is so wrong? He couldn't have been more wrong. He was saying everything is great and we are right around the corner from this huge disaster. He couldn't have been more wrong. How does it feel to listen to it, knowing how wrong he was, right? So he said, what his answer was, he couldn't exactly speak his mind. He couldn't exactly be honest because he was a member of the administration. So he kind of had to toe the party line, and so he couldn't just come out and say how bad it was. He had all these political pressures. He admitted that he lied because he wanted to put a spin on it. He wanted to pretend that things were better than they were. The Federal Reserve, these guys are always concerned about psychology. So the way these guys work is they don't want to start the problem themselves. So the Fed is worried about a recession they never want to say. We think a recession is coming because they are afraid that those statements will cause the recession. Because the minute the Fed says we think a recession is coming, the recession will hit. Now they are worried about businesses saying a recession is coming. You better not hire these people. You better not make this investment right. You better be cautious because there's a recession coming and the Fed is afraid that people's preparations for a recession are going to bring on the very recession that they are worried about. So they don't want to pretend that there's not going to be a recession and hope that maybe it doesn't happen. But of course, if people prepared for a recession in advance, it wouldn't be as bad. It's when you are blindsided by the recession and you have to unwind all the bad decisions that you have made that exacerbates it. The same thing is happening now. There's a very good chance that Jeremy Powell knows that inflation is not transitory, but the last thing he could do is to admit that it's not transitory. Because if the Fed admits that we have an inflation problem, well then they have to solve it. But because it's unsolvable, because the Fed has created a situation where we can't fight inflation because we have too much debt, and fighting inflation would create a problem that the Fed believes is even worse than inflation. It would create an economic implosion. Powell is doing exactly what Ben Bernanke did, and Ben Bernanke thought he was a member of the Bush administration because when he told that Motley Fool host he was a member of the administration, he meant the George Bush administration. We thought the Fed is supposed to be independent. You are not supposed to just be parroting what the administration wants to say. You are not supposed to think of yourself as a member of the administration. If Bert Bernanke thought he was a member of the Bush administration, Powell thinks he's a member of the Biden administration, especially since Janet Yellen, his former boss, although that was before he got there, the former FOMC chairman is the Secretary of the Treasury. He is totally on board with this Biden administration. So he is going to say the same thing. He is just going to say inflation is transitory, even though he believes it may not be. But he is going to hope because maybe Ben Bernanke was worried about the subprime market. But he was hoping that by diminishing it, maybe it would be okay. Maybe things would blow over. Maybe a miracle will happen. So he's just gonna keep on saying everything is okay. He's just gonna hope and pray that a miracle happens and he ends up being right. So maybe that's the same thing they are doing now. They are just praying for a miracle that inflation just happens to be transitory. But as per Peter, if you understand anything about economics and inflation, where it comes from, you realize that it's not transitory at all. The only thing that we are transitioning from is an era of permanently high inflation. They have to know, and if they don't know the results, the same. But they have to know this is going to blow up, right? And even if they don't know this is going to blow up, this is going to blow up, says Peter. The thing is, there's nothing they can do about it because they can't stop it from blowing up. After all, that's the cure to the problem. It has to blow up, but they can't let it blow up because that exposes the problem. But what's going to happen is eventually we are going to have this collapse and they are just going to be looking for scapegoats and they are going to try to figure out who they are going to blame. What is going to happen, and this was going to happen years ago. We did not realize that we would be able to kick the can down the road for as many years as we did, and we could print this much money and foreigners would be willing to just recycle it all into our stock market, and we could run these huge trade deficits and not have to suffer the consequences of this monetary policy. We are going to suffer them now to a much greater degree, warns Peter, because during the years that we kicked the can down the road, the problems got so much bigger, the bubble got so much bigger. But what's going to happen is you are going to see price controls just like Richard Nixon 1971 imposed price controls. It didn't work, of course, because you are trying to cover up the symptoms of inflation rather than doing anything about the inflation. They made it worse. But right now, people are talking about shortages. There are shortages of stuff because there's a surplus of money. Whenever you print a lot of money and give it to people, they want to buy stuff. The problem is, this stuff is not there because nobody made it. The government can print money. There's no limit to how much they can print. But they can't print goods. They can't print purchasing power that has to be produced by the private sector. So if you have all these people with government money looking to buy stuff, especially when they are not even working, you have all these people who used to work and help produce goods and provide services not working at all, with actually more money to buy goods and services, even though they didn't do anything to help produce them. So of course the government says there's a shortage. It's not a shortage of stuff, it's a surplus of money. So the net thing that is going to happen is the price of everything is going to have to go up, and then there won't be a shortage anymore. Because people won't be able to afford to buy the stuff they want to buy it now because the prices are low. But once the prices respond to all the money printing, then it won't necessarily be a shortage. But what is going to produce shortages is going to be price controls. Because what's going to happen is when the government starts to see the price of everything going up right across the board, consumer goods, the government is going to try to blame those greedy businesses for jacking up prices, for gouging the consumers, for exploiting people. So as per Peter, they are going to try to find a way to attack the symptoms, which are the price increases. So they are going to impose limits, and what that is going to do is create big shortages. What an interesting video this is, right? If so, then please let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And like this video, share it to your financial friends. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this beautiful channel if you want more such fascinating videos about the financial ups and downs that are happening every day in the market. Thank you everyone.